Thanks, guys, for having me. My name's Charlie Lever. So I work government solutions for Iridium. My boss is over here, Mr. Ken Flowers. He's the VP of Government Solutions. So thanks for having us, number one. So what I'm going to do, we're going to start out with the video. Iridium is everywhere. We're going to talk about the constellation itself, and then we're going to work our way down to the ground, the appropriate transceivers, and some of the product lines that we offer. So hopefully we can enable your technologies in the poles. Okay, with that being said, let's start with the video, and then we'll roll into the presentation.
The vision of the future of communications is that absolutely everything is connected. Even after 30 years now, the cell phone networks really only cover about 10% of the planet at most.
All those users that have jobs or needs or requirements outside of the cellular network can be served by Iridium Next.
From transportation, security, safety,
forestry, mining, oil exploration, aviation, maritime, machine-to-machine data, and so on. A lot of people desperately need Iridium.
So we are voice and data. That's what we provide. We have 66 operational satellites in low Earth orbit. It's a mesh network. Your data goes up, it transmits up, and it reaches our constellation. It goes through a network of crosslinks. So what does that mean? Your data is not M-hopping across the globe. So your data goes up, goes through our crosslinks, and for the government side, we have one gateway which this data comes down to. So there's a peace of mind there from a government standpoint that your data is going down into a DoD gateway in Hawaii. So just keep that in mind. We have 1.3 million subscribers, predominantly on the commercial side. Now, government, we do have 100,000, and that subscription, those numbers are going up. So we're seeing increased presence and increased business and increased activity, which we're very excited about. Key markets, government, military. So we'll talk about how that applies to the NSF, Pat, and certainly we'll talk a little bit about the EMSS contract as well. We hit maritime, aviation, handheld. Your handheld device is what you might traditionally think of with Iridium and some of your radio devices. But we're going to talk about IoT as well, because, listening to these very interesting presentations, I know IoT is very important for the polar community. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Iridium Next, this is a technical marvel. We deorbited our legacy constellation, replenished with 75 new satellites. So think about that. Deorbiting with no incident, no issues, 75 satellites, and then we partnered with SpaceX, and we have a brand new constellation. Again, 66 operational, low Earth orbit. And what does that really mean for you? LEO means you have that lower latency as well. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about those services as we continue with the slide deck. Next slide, please. Oh, I got it. Sorry. EMSS contract, 7 years. We were awarded with it says DoD, but this also applies to the government, Pat. So that's National Science Foundation, that you guys can leverage the EMSS contract. And so what does that mean? Well, the cost has already been negotiated. The usage has already been negotiated. So as an end user, if you're an NSF employee, our narrowband services are unlimited use. That's a big deal. So you're not worried about minutes. You're not worried about, hey, what subscription do I have? I can go in and the short burst data, the SBD, the 9603, when I'm sending sensor data up, I'm not worried about usage. I'm not worried about the cost of that. So that's a pretty big deal. That was just recently awarded. It's 7 years, and we're looking at standard voice, secure voice, but also that data, the IoT piece as well. So that's pretty important. And what services are covered on that? I'm not going to harp too much on this. And guys, if you have any questions about certain technologies, requirements that you're interested in, certainly feel free to ask offline. But certain capabilities that I think you would be probably interested in, of course, the legacy voice, the radio, sure. Comms, absolutely. SBD. Rudix, it seems that you guys also utilize that in the polls as well. That is unlimited use, NSF, employee, pretty important to understand that. Short burst data, 9603, 9602. So what can we do? What I want to emphasize, and then when we do the breakout session toward the end of the session here, I'd like to give you kind of a point of reference of how small these transceivers are. This transceiver to the right here is the size of a stamp, and it maintains connectivity to this entire LEO constellation. That's a pretty interesting concept. So we'll take that transceiver and we'll leverage our ecosystem of partners. We have partners on the commercial side, probably have about 25 partners on the government side that will develop applications around that particular 9603. So if you're interested if you have a requirement, if you're interested in an end result, let me know, and I can sync you up with an appropriate partner to work out a solution for you. All right, but that's pretty important. SPD, you can definitely track and monitor. You can do some of your sensor data that you guys are interested in. And again, that falls under that EMSS contract. That's pretty important to understand. What can you do? Ocean profiling, climate monitoring, these floats, bit of 9603, 9602, some of that capability, water temperature, salinity, all that kind of stuff that you guys are very interested in. Maybe gives an indication of early weather warning. Maybe perhaps you're interested in currents, sea level. Certainly you can pass some of that data over the Iridium network. Very small transceivers. Again, very important to understand that. Iridium Edge, perhaps you're interested in logistics. Can I track my equipment as it's going past the Drake Passage, South America to Antarctica? How can I track my stuff? That's important. Iridium Edge, no visible antenna, put a transceiver in there, real-time tracking of your equipment to have a logistical overview of where your stuff is located. And I think that's pretty important because logistics for the polls is important from what I've garnered with these presentations. So that's an important technology. We replenished the constellation. 66 brand new satellites that are operational. We have on-orbit spares. What does this new launch campaign bring? What are these new satellites bringing? It's bringing a new service, a new product line called Certus. And what does that really mean? We're going from the narrowband, which we talked about, the EMSS contract, some of the short burst data, some of the voice, and we're elevating up the bandwidth. So now we have what we call midband and also broadband. Broadband is operational right now up to 700 kilobits per second down. There's a lot you can do with that, and we'll talk a little bit about that as I progress through the slides. And then we also have a mid-band feature we'll talk about as well. That's 22 kilobits per second, 88 down. There's a market for that particular capability. That transceiver for the 2288 is the size of a cell phone. Again, a very small terrestrial footprint that has connectivity to this elaborate satellite constellation. Pole-to-pole connectivity. Pole to pole. Okay, that's important. New capabilities, we do have some hosted payloads. Iridium does real-time tracking of aircraft. We have a maritime version of that as well that does real-time tracking as far as hosted payload. So we are interested in that as well. Our final launch of this campaign was January 2019. And that's the reason we're here. We want to educate that, hey, we got a new constellation and we got a lot more capability. And let's talk a little bit about that. Here's our Certus class. Right now, currently, I talked about the 2288. And these are the certain services and applications and technologies that these particular data rates can bring. 22, if you're looking at more higher fidelity telemetry, remote monitoring, it's pretty important. 88, graphical weather. Credit card validation, probably not that important to you guys, but internet VPN to a certain degree. Perhaps you can couple it with compression software. There's a lot you can do with that 2288. Maybe command and control of a UAV above the poles or in the poles. That's a certain application as well. And then if you go to the right, you see in the green, 352 up, 700 down. That is what we're currently offering with the Mission Link. And if you guys are interested, you can certainly walk to this room here. AST is featuring the Mission Link at one of our commercial partners. 700 kilobits per second, imagery, certainly video. We got a couple examples. Telemedicine. I think that might be important in the polls as well. And from what I'm understanding, some of your buoy technologies, some of your floats, perhaps are getting a little bigger and bigger. Maybe a certed solution is where you need to go. And we can certainly provide that for you. Okay, early warning. A lot of buoy technologies. We're doing a lot of work with Coast Guard, NOAA, to perhaps put these higher capability transceivers in buoy technologies. Again, more higher fidelity as far as sensor output, sensor inputs, telemetry. You can do a lot more than the narrowband, the short burst data, 2.4 kilobits per second. When you start elevating up the bandwidth, obviously there's a lot more you can do. 9770, that's that 2288. And again, at the end of the day, I'll have the tangible transceivers. What I would like to do is, pass it around so you just get a good indication of how small these transceivers are. There's a lot you can do. There's a lot of technologies you can wrap around that. The 352, 704, we just talked about the Mission Link. You can see the antenna on the top. Thales is one of our government partners, circled. And that's going to provide a lot of capability. And you got to understand with these Mission Links, they're on the move as well. So if you have a console in a vehicle or a vessel, you'll hear Vessel Link as well. It's just the maritime version of that across the way. As you're on the move, you're maintaining connectivity to an entire Iridium constellation. So that's a pretty big aspect. We are also offering an 8888 down the road. It's on the roadmap, 15 months. And again, that's another little target area that we can perhaps identify some requirements and technologies. And the important thing about this is the chipset. So it's even smaller than the 9770, that's the 2288. So you're going from a cell phone size transceiver to something even smaller. So a lot of technologies being developed from the Iridium standpoint. Again, the AST, one of our partners across the way, doing a lot of work with ocean profiling, ocean cleanup, putting Certus terminals out there in the sea. You can receive images, video. It's important. It gives you a lot more fidelity as far as your analysis. And then I'm going to conclude with just an example here in Norway. This is the Mission Link. You'll find it in there. 12 devices can connect. You can establish your own comm node. 4G LTE ready. You can establish a Wi-Fi with Iridium. It's compatible with cell phones. You can hold a VPN. You can run mission applications. You can get on YouTube. It's important to understand that this capability is there, omnidirectional phased array satellite antenna. And that's stationary. You can also mag mount it on a vehicle as well, establish a comm node on the move as far as vehicles and vessels. So really good capability, 700 kilobits per second down. So just to give you an indication, there's a lot you can do. And I want to conclude, if you don't mind. I don't know if you guys know Mr. O'Brady. He just came out with a book. I believe it's called The Impossible First. It's a bestseller. And I'm sure y'all are part of that community. I just started reading the book. It's exceptional. But, he not only, trekked across Antarctica, 700 plus miles. He did it in under 50 days with a 300-pound sled, which is incredible. He used the Garmin inReach, I'm reading the book right now, to text his wife in Portland, to work logistics. It's very, very interesting. Thank you. But he also took the Drake Passage. He's rowing in the Drake Passage, South America to Antarctica. He's doing this rowing expedition as well. And this is a video of that. If you can select on the Twitter. This is them rowing. They're at 60 degrees south. This video is coming through VesselLink, which is our maritime version of that configuration in the other room. So pretty interesting. That's a pretty good full motion video. So that gives you an indication of some applications that we can provide to you in Antarctica, obviously also in the northern poles as well. So just wanted to conclude with that. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. I'm here really, honestly, government solutions. I want to collect requirements from you guys. Hey, what are you looking from an analysis standpoint so I can help you? We've probably already done it before. I have a lot of good partners I can certainly sync you up with, and we can provide applications and technologies that are Iridium enabled, okay? Again, very small transceivers talking to this 66 satellite constellation in LEO, low latency, pole-to-pole coverage, okay? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.